We'll let her understand it gradually. Maybe do some real estate shopping.
For now, though, if you wanted to, you can just tell her you had a good day in the market.
You don't understand. No. You don't understand the questions that come with that, okay? But we'll explain it to her, and we'll all just take some time to figure out what's next, which right away I think should be building a bigger box, like the size of a room or something. Or at least more than one person can fit into it. Safe or not, the thing feels like a coffin the way it is.
We're gonna need a bigger box. This is Spoilers.
This is Spoilers.
Dude, that's all you're about these days.
That's what she said, yeah. We also had honorable mentions. Are You Hungry? I Haven't Spoiled Since Later This Afternoon. And Primer, I Hardly Know Her. We had lots of options this time. But hey, everybody, welcome to Spoilers. We're doing another fun little bonus ep, kind of, while we work on a couple other projects, getting close to 500 or past 500 at this point, and we have a special guest. But let the hosts introduce themselves. Had an opening question that came from this movie, Primer. If you had $400 billion, and you'd already done the charity thing, and you had a mansion with his and her helicopter pads, how would you spend your days? I don't know who's Weester or Easter, but Josh, let's start with you. We'll give Shad a second to think.
Cool, this is Josh from Goshen, and I think one thing that humans that we've invented that we really need to preserve is time. So I would create an indestructible atomic clock deep in the mountains. No one could... Oh wait, Jeff Bezos already did this. You know what, Pappy? I like this question because I truly think what my answer is, and I feel like I'm a lazy asshole for this, is I would chill. I would hike. I would take my kids on trips, and my wife, of course, and friends. I would see the world, drink a lot of coffee, see a lot of sunsets.
Cool.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know what...
How many mojitos is $400 billion? Just quick calculation.
I don't feel the need to spend it all, and I feel like a lot of people's answers are going to be about how productive they can be, and I feel that, but I think my deep down answer, like my true self, is like, I chill to the max.
I like it. I mean, it's not building a time machine. It's not punching, what's his name, Platt in the face, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Shad, do you have a strange colleague you'd punch in the face with total immunity, or what would you do? By the way, joining us from the Monomaniacs pod, Shad, first time on Spoilers.
That's correct. Monomaniacs podcast. Yeah, hi, this is Shad.
We gave him such little notice for this pod. I gotta just say.
That's true. That's true. I had to go home, talk to a contractor, and then mow the lawn, and then watch this movie, and then hop on this podcast. So,
I think it's pretty clear that you have a box and you went back in time so you could do all those chores and watch the movie.
You don't even need $400 billion. It's a perfect evening right there.
This guy's
living the dream.
This guy hasn't slept for 36 hours.
So I could watch Primer as many times as I needed to understand the plot, which was roughly like 25. So now I'm bulletproof. But no. It was important. You messed the moment up for me. This is Shad from Hillsdale. There we go. It's important. Name, place.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I would say if I had... Well, so I do have colleagues who shall remain nameless, of course, who, I distaste, but I would never, ever punch somebody in the face unless there was no consequences. Now, figuring out how to do that with a time machine is kind of the crux of this movie. But the $400 billion question, what I would do, no joke, is I would buy a handful of major franchises and then just sit on the rights. Make people start thinking for a change. You know what I mean? People are mad already at people for purchasing these rights, sitting on them, not doing anything with them really, rather than let them be bastardized. Just blink them out of existence. I would own Star Wars, that way nobody could complain about it. I'm already happy that, they killed Star Wars.
When you said franchises, I thought you meant like the Boston Celtics, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, I would abolish pro sports, I think. I don't even think I'd be able to buy half of the NFL for $400 billion. I don't know. It's not that much money.
If you could stop them from making more Terminator movies, I think you would deserve sainthood at that point. That would be the best use of $400 billion anybody could do.
Another time travel story.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that might come into play a little later on in the episode, but I'll save that. This is Pappy, recording from Goshen, Indiana. I asked this question. I didn't really have a good answer. I think I'm pretty similar to Josh. Like, I would just want to do more podcasts. Like, I think that would be fun. Mm-hmm. Like, our release cadence would be greatly expedited if I didn't have to work a day job. And maybe, this might be fun. I might buy, like, a mini golf course and, like, really trick it out and let people come in for free. Like the ones from like cartoons or like your imagination as a kid with like windmills and ramps and I don't know, conveyor belts, like all of that kind of stuff I think would be pretty
you could
fun.
do that now, Pap. Let's make your dreams a reality.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I don't think the materials are very expensive. You have plywood, right? Got some in your backyard?
We have the know-how. You're really good with machines, Pap.
I'm terrible at machines. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I could do...
Good follow-up question here. What is the extreme extent of this, mini golf course? Like, what are you making that would require the $400 billion? Is it just a really big windmill?
Hold your breath. Make a wish. Count to three.
Full-size windmill. I'm thinking like a big funnel too, and then like some like interactive traps and pranks, right? Like maybe like some RC cars that run around that you have to like dodge.
This is $400 billion. You need to take this up to space and let the guy drinking the Red Bull in the suit skydive it back down to your course. It's all included.
I mean, listen, the first thing I would do would be make more spoilers. This whole mini golf thing is just a side project.
Yeah. A statue of a very turgid Viggo Mortensen that you have to shoot between the legs of.
Where would all the money go, Shad? If you were to make that, where would all the money go?
Well, look. I'm just gonna let you fill in the blanks. I think turgid is the active word there. That's all I'm gonna say.
Robust bust of Viggo would be donning the greens. But all of that aside, we're here to talk about a movie, Primer. Josh, first of all, why did you want to do Primer? And second of all, why did you make me host the most unhostable, complicated movie in the history of movies?
Well, we are doing some of these like in-person recordings, Pap. So
and it's been fun.
They're really
flexible.
Yeah, they're fun, and the less editing time. It's very attractive. And like that's what we were planning on doing tonight. And I just felt like you are a really good host of those. That's all there really was to it. Like you were being the host, and I was punching the buttons. And the reason we're doing Prime is because we're doing a movie in the movie game really soon. I don't want to spoil it, but it's right up this movie's alley. So much so that if you watch this movie on YouTube, the first recommended thing is... Well, I'll have to bleep that out, but I wanted to tell you guys. I wanted to tell you, Shad, what the movie was.
Okay, yes.
So we'll be doing that movie soon.
Yes, it's the last of the Mohican situation.
This is essentially a primer for...
Yeah, I mean the first half, and you kind of lost it with the cheap pun, Josh, making a bad impression on Shad. But Shad, have you had exposure to this movie before? Do you remember seeing it? Because I will say this was a Longhouse family classic. Late night, spending the night at the Long's house, they would throw this on.
Spin it.
You'd just be so confused right before bed. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was introduced to this movie back in like 2010 from like I don't remember which one it was, but one of those Channel Awesome reviewers on YouTube. You know, if you remember back in the day, it's not back. I mean, it's 10 years ago. It's not really back in the day, but and that's the only impression I got of it, was that it was completely incomprehensible. Now that I've watched it, I don't think I really agree with that. I mean, the basic beats of it kind of make sense, and if you want to sit down and map it out, sure. But it was always just like, oh, you know, anybody can make a movie.
Did you guys watch the YouTube? Did you watch any movie where they mapped it out? It's fun to see that people interpret it.
I have a graph open on my computer. I did not have time because, you know, as aforementioned, I had to mow the lawn. I had responsibilities, domestic responsibilities, unlike some people, I guess. And I had to, so I'm looking at a graph now. And I mean, you can, but I don't even really think it's in the spirit of the movie for there to be a timeline. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit later, but I think the ambiguity is sort of where the story's told.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just for context, Josh, I watched the one by London City Girl, and this is interesting because like this video has 1.5 million views, and like the rest of the views on our channel have like 800, 500 views. Like it's the definitive primer illustrated explanation, and it's nearly 30 minutes long, and this movie is 70 minutes long. So it's like to explain the 70-minute movie requires nearly half that time.
At 3 p.m, Abe 3 and Aaron 4 get into their boxes and emerge as Abe 4 and Aaron 5 on Thursday morning. Back at 9 a.m, Abe 3 and Aaron 4 are on their way to the hotel, and Abe 4 and Aaron 5 play the markets as usual. But foolishly, Aaron 5 has brought his phone with him, so when his phone rings, they realize that Aaron 4, who is holed up in the hotel room, has not received the call as they had meant him to. They have broken symmetry and are a little frightened of the repercussions. But there is nothing immediate.
But let's talk about the characters of Primer. And I want to start with Shane Carruth. Interesting guy, I think, to be charitable to him. Josh, what's Aaron like in this movie? I want to start with the characters first, and we can get into the time travel mechanics later. But Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron is an everyman, I think. He's living his life kind of as a entrepreneur / corporate / inventor type dude that wears a tie all the time, even when he's just hanging out with his buddies. Just always a tie. He's got to have a tie. I remember back in the day when I watched this movie, I do feel like both main characters were like attractive. I mean, not in like a physical sense, but just like they seemed like people you could relate to. You wanted to buy in with what they were saying. And maybe this is too high of a level for the question you asked, but I feel like he's a pretty strong protagonist, and he probably has like the biggest arc, I would say. He is the main character too, right? It's all narrated by him.
No one would say that what they were doing was complicated. It wouldn't even be considered new, except for maybe in the geological sense. They took from their surroundings what was needed and made of it something more.
Yeah. So this is what's interesting, right? Like I saw Primer when I was younger than these guys for the first time. I was like 15, 16 years old. And there was like this entrepreneurial spirit and like grind that they have that I thought was like, I don't know, I'm with you. It's like kind of attractive and cool and like interesting, right? Like they're kind of this garage gang of people and somewhere.
There's Steve Jobs in it up out there.
Yeah, the self myth of Silicon Valley. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Shad, I thought this was interesting too. Of the 70-minute movie, the first 20 minutes contains ostensibly zero time travel, right? Like zero time travel that we're aware of.
I was reading the Wikipedia summary afterwards, and I was like, the first 20 minutes isn't in the Wikipedia summary. It's the first sentence. You know, they're entrepreneurs in a garage, but it's just guys hanging out, shoving their ties into their shirts. I don't know why. You know, if they're working with dirty equipment, they take the damn shirt off. I don't know what the plan is, but it's, ties in shirts, sleeves rolled up, dudes rock. We're out here trying to make money, right?
Yeah.
And I it's very much like, I don't know, nowadays I think we've become a lot more skeptical of this lifestyle, probably because of influencers and whatnot. But they're just seriously on the grind. They're like, I go to work 40 hours a week. We spend 30 hours in the garage. We're trying to make patents happen, and they have incomprehensible, techno babble for a long time about all those patents and how much stress they're under. But they make it happen.
These guys.
What? Liquid helium. These guys are funded.
No, that's not what he's doing. That's what this is. Okay? That's the whole difference. That's what the box is. See, this way we don't have to play the game where we're going back and forth, coming up with new and innovative ways to make the thing colder and generally unusable in the process.
Aaron, I need
see, this is coming out from the back
unmarketable.
And unmarketable. By coming out from the back end, see, rather than changing the surrounding temperature, we'll just change the level that it'll conduct, the transition temperature. And see, by bombarding these edges...
Look, what he's saying is these guys, they're dropping the ceramic, the temperature lower and lower. Makes the ceramic less resistant, knocks out the interior magnetic field.
Exactly.
What he's saying
what
is
I'm saying is, we drop the box down on it. Okay, focus our own...
There are some little parts I like in there, too. I don't care. Am I skipping ahead too much, Pappy? Let me know.
No, go for it. Yeah.
It's like you kind of get the sense that the four guys are all smart. They're kind of like they've made a little band or something.
Yeah.
And they've got some democratic style where they take turns following through one person's idea. And then if it pans out or not, they like move on to the next. Is that how you guys interpreted that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And there's this added element though, where the second something starts to work out, they turn on each other. You know what I mean? It feels like a strange critique, honestly, of tech startup culture. Aaron's kind of a Zuckerberg type. The second that things start working out, he starts boxing as many people out as possible. But I mean, I feel like talking about this movie literally is already a losing battle. So sorry for skipping ahead.
No, definitely. We got to move around, skip around. So go for it.
Yeah. But he's slowly but surely losing any sense of empathy. The ends are justifying the means. At the start of the movie, he says, what's the line he says multiple times? You have it, you got to use it. It's like they have the opportunity. We're going to make things happen.
That's what makes this pretty great high fantasy from that kind of level, because that is like the capitalistic mindset. But the fantasy of this movie that you could make time travel possible, it makes that easier to buy into. Like, yeah, two people is already a lot of people going back and forth in time, trusting each other. Like, we got to cut out Ringo and George from this. Like, that's just not going to fly.
And by Ringo and George, you mean Robert and Phillip, which I only wrote down as like SIGs guy and router guy. Those are their only like discernible like attributes.
I love the naturalistic dialogue at the start where they're just talking over each other. It just makes it's all about setting a mood. It's just characterization, because there's no plots actually occurring at all. Until they start going back in time, but they're just in the moment. They're sleeves rolled up,
which I feel like there's something going on there with like their attire. Like, and I'm not able to pin it down because my brain's too distracted with trying to figure out like, okay, which loop are these guys on, like in their primer loops. But as they like degenerate through the loops, their attire does kind of like dress down a little bit. Like at one point they're both in cardigans, no tie. And then like by the end, Aaron's like in a sweater, like choking out the other Aaron and like fighting him with something. So like I can't quite put my finger on what he was going for there, but it's definitely there.
You lose your handwriting and you lose your sense of style the more times you take loops.
I don't know. I think it's less style and more just they look like they were raised by their grandparents. I mean, they're showing up to the party at the end to stop the guy with the shotgun, and they're both in their work clothes. Although everybody else seemed like they were also in their work clothes. So I don't know. I might be barking up the wrong tree, but...
They look like they're going to knock on my door and try and sell me a lifestyle or something.
What would you think of like the couple of friends that always show up in a suit and tie because they always want everyone to know they're like real serious, smart business dudes? Like, it's just they really try to make that the look, but then you really start thinking about being their friend in real life, and it's a little bit haunting.
Yeah. Well, they like to party, which is a important detail, because the more parties they have, the more likely it is that guy's going to show up and they can ask him for money.
Right. Which, okay, I want to mention that too. There's these other like side periphery characters. I mentioned one, Platt. We never see him. No idea who he is. Like all we know is that they want to punch him. What's the other guy, the the dad,
Mr. Granger, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Granger. We barely see him in the movie, but he's a critical sort of mystery within the movie too.
Thomas Granger. It's important it's Thomas Granger because if you say Mr. Granger, you sound like a 6-year-old, apparently.
Right. All this to say, like, this movie is throwing so much information at you. And Shad, I know you said it's like, maybe it's not totally incomprehensible on a single watch, but I was talking to Stevie about this, who is not a fan of this movie, by the way, and I was trying to get a sense of him, from him, why he thought that. There are so many details that it does kind of wash over you at a point, right? And if this would have been a 2-hour movie, I think it would be exhausting to go through, right? Like, it's a 70-minute movie feels like a 90-minute movie, but in a good way, with all the information that's in here.
Yeah, it seems sort of like if Tenet had a plan, you know?
Yeah.
Because you walk out of a movie like that, which should be much more easy to understand, but it's obvious that a lot of stuff got like cut on the floor and, you know, things don't really quite line up, but everything here lines up. It all makes sense. It's just presented so haphazardly and quickly, as you're saying, you know, and all the action happens off screen. Like nothing actually occurs. It's just guys in rooms talking, which, you know, you can make a movie for $7,000 with guys in rooms talking. I'm developing my thoughts on it because I did have to watch it just recently, so I don't know if that's good or bad yet. I'll come to a decision by the time we wrap this show.
We know you've been up for 36 hours. It's been a rough loop for you.
Mowing the
I
lawn.
haven't eaten since 6 p.m. This afternoon. I'm unstuck, as it were.
Mowing the lawn 4 times in one day is rough. Same lawn over and over.
And
especially when you have to kill yourself before you start mowing the lawn.
It's really hard to
a lot of physical effort.
Hard to listen to the ear set too when you're in the lawnmower. It's just like a lot going on.
Yes.
Let's talk about that though, because you mentioned the $7,000 budget, and then I don't know. I kind of want to get those out of the way. So I've seen 2 Chain Carruth movies. I've seen Primer. I've seen Upstream Color.
You saw the other one.
Yeah, the other one. The other one's good. The other one is way more artsy, and I don't honestly remember a lot about it. Like, there's a couple like key spoilers that I remember, but it's also like very confusing and a lot to take in. He had a falling out and had some legal trouble, I'll say, like within the last decade too, so it didn't really amount to much. But Josh, the talent in this movie, right? Like, we've had movies from Alexander Cooper. We've had movies from like Dark Forest. We've had movies that the directors have reached out to us saying, "Hey, can you review our movie?" and have put us in a terribly awkward position because they're not half as good as Primer, right? Like, this is a feat. This is a monumental feat of independent filmmaking.
I think so. My only hesitation is, should we talk about this feat first, or should we talk about Shane's alleged misdeeds?
I mean,
like,
what's there to say? Like, he seems like he's got some pretty bad demons.
Fill me
He's been
in. I
arrested
wasn't
multiple
really
times.
aware of it till you said something today, to be honest. I feel like maybe a few years ago I heard some headlines, didn't stick with me. What's the tea?
So, I mean, he's had multiple like stalking and domestic abuse arrests.
It's not good.
What's really wild is that not good. He makes Primer. 9 years later, he makes Upstream Color.
Big gap.
The project that he had in flight, and this is all conjecture, so who knows how it turned out, but was called The Modern Ocean. And I tried to use the Wayback Machine, but apparently he posted a movie on Vimeo where he was shooting a refrigerator with a crossbow that said The Modern Ocean on it, so that might have spoke to his mental state
at the time.
Yeah. But the people that were attached to this project were Anne Hathaway, Keanu Reeves, Jeff Goldblum, and a young Tom Holland. Were all attached to this project, which never got off the ground.
I feel like if you make Primer, you have the doors open for you. He must have really been going through a lot to drop that so hard.
I think to
Yeah, and I
that
was listening
point,
to an interview.
Shad.
Go ahead.
Well, your question from earlier, Pappy, like, is $7,000 really the budget? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think this movie, it's a miracle, really. Like, I had to take a break watching this today in preparation, and I realized, like, I couldn't wait to jump back into the movie just because of the pacing and the way the plot develops and the weirdness of it. I don't know what they did, even before knowing it was $7,000, which is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, it's out of control.
I was just like, with a small cast and like not much action, like it's so captivating. I think that's one of like the biggest strengths of this, whether you agree with the paradoxes or not. It's like, you can't take your eyes off of it for 117 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 77 minutes? 77 minutes.
The only way you make this movie for $7,000 is you have the Tommy Wiseau ass credits that this movie has. He did literally everything, which, you know, I listened actually today while I was at work because I needed to do something to prep. I listened to the soundtrack.
Which he wrote?
Yes, he wrote himself, and they use it really well in the movie, I think. It's just, especially those kind of the piano punches that are in there, just the clanging pianos really kind of add to the tension there. But it's very simple, you know, it's very simple, very ambient. And obviously, you know, he just opened up his $135 Ableton subscription and knocked it out. You know, it's impressive. I mean, how much of that money just went to getting the hotel room? I was thinking about that. I was like, that must have been $300, and that's a huge percentage.
Yeah, I think they said like their biggest expense was just film stock itself, like just the film to shoot the movie was their biggest expense.
My mind goes to when you think about how much of a shoestring budget it is. It's like the movie seems pretty vast. But then when you start thinking about like the cleverness and the way they switch settings, but the settings are all places that you could foresee probably filming for free in. Yeah. Like a storage locker. Yeah, you can probably sneak a camera in there. Not too many people give a shit.
I don't know. You have to move all the props and stuff. I imagine they knew a guy. Which I'm going to break away from this conversation real quick because I think the funniest moment in the movie is when they introduce the U-Haul self-storage like it's like a Marvel end credits scene. Like, you know, they're sitting talking about it. The camera's slow. He's like, man, we would need somewhere safe that no one else could get into. That was climate controlled. And the camera just slowly pans. You see the U-Haul sign. And I was like, oh.
Someplace close.
Yeah. I just kind of imagined like it was going to smash cut to the credits at that point, you know, and say primer. But not quite. Not quite.
The U-Haul storage will return in the Avengers.
You know, everybody does time travel stories now. They did time travel stories in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I feel like this movie came out before that was super popular. Like Looper hadn't even come out yet. You know, I mean, Time Bandits had. You know,
classic
time travel movie.
Great movie. We all love Time Bandits.
Yeah. Oh, no. Because today I did research. I'm gonna interrupt this yet again for this. So I recently watched Time Bandits as well. I listened to your guys' Time Bandits episode.
Oh boy, that's old.
Well, very different cast back then, but all knows except for from you. You were the only one who gave it a yes, and you said you gave it a yes only so that it wasn't all knows. So I don't know.
Well, I still love it. I have the Criterion Time Bandits, which came with one of the maps from.
Oh, nice!
That was the best
beaten
like
down
$25
Pappy.
spent.
I don't think you were. You almost got talked out of your own classic yes by getting whipped so hard.
Well, I've talked about this before. It was like our 5th episode, and I just hadn't experienced that yet, where you go in so excited for show and tell to the class, and everyone just boos you as you present your movie. It's rough.
Yeah, the Brett experience. You got to live it for yourself.
Yeah. Just in terms of critical commentary, there's one thing I don't like, and it's the color grading. And I don't know if that saved money.
They're saying something.
Why does it take place in Mexico?
The Mexico filter comes in. I wrote this down. I wrote Mexico filter right after they take their first trip together. And Aaron's in the car, and he's having the Joker moment where he's laughing in the back of a car. That's when the Mexico filter's on. So I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be the opposite of a Mexico filter. It's like things are good.
It makes me feel like things are thinned out. That's when they're living kind of two times at one time, right? They for lack of a better term, they have the one ring on, and they really shouldn't. You really shouldn't be doing this, right?
You have it. You got to use it.
There's also a couple moments of ADR that aren't the best, but again, $7,000.
I noticed that.
It's amazing.
Didn't notice that as a kid.
Let's get into the time travel mechanics.
Ooh, I have a question first.
Oh, please.
Would you care to explain why this movie is called Primer before we move on?
I don't know. I actually had not even considered that. I don't know. Is there a reason? Is there an IMDb fact?
I'm just not sure myself. I was giving you a chance.
I watched it on Amazon Prime, and so that kind of worked, but I don't know. I don't know. Let me see if I can Google
Is it because a primer is something you apply before paint, which is the color that's upstream to this movie in the future? That's really bad. Go. What'd you have?
I don't know. I imagine. Real quick. I did also sort of feel weirdly dirty typing in primer on Amazon Prime on my phone. It just felt wrong. But I don't know. I think back to I was reading a little bit of an interview with the director, and he was talking about how it was a lot more this is actually how technological things occur. It's just people in rooms making huge discoveries that have life-changing consequences. The time machine's just a box, right? And so maybe it's primer as in it's, or it might even be I know this is going to sound weird and pedantic, but primer, you know what I mean? A thing there to educate you about what you are to know or learn. I don't know. It's setting the foundation. This is for something huge, which Aaron is doing at the end, right? When he's definitely totally in a foreign country where they got one guy who could speak, different language, sort of talking at him.
It's like the high school French teacher at their local school.
Which, why France? It's a weird choice in my mind. Or maybe it's like Algeria where they speak French. I don't know. Those guys don't look Algerian.
Yeah. So this is from Reddit/r/primer movie, which is a whole subreddit. And the user Mindwax offers this.
Can't wait.
Carruth says, so this is he's quoting Shane Carruth, and Pappy's going to read, so bear with us all. First thing, I saw these guys as scientifically accomplished but ethically morons. They never had any reasons before to have ethical questions. So when they're hit with this device, they're blindsided by it. The first thing they do is make money with it. They're not talking about the ethics of altering your former self. So to me, they're kids. They're prep school kids, basically. To call it primer or a lesson was the easy way to go. And then there's also this power they have using the device is something almost worse than death, blah, 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 blah. The thing that is most important to feel like you're in the front line, to be the prime or the premier. I definitely never wanted to say that in the film, but that's where it comes from.
The prime or the premiere, neither of which are actually the title of the movie.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't mention the lesson thing, like the primer. It's an ethical lesson. It's funny. They really do have nobody ever asks, should we be doing this at the start? They're like, yeah, so
True.
I did this in my free time, and I went through with it. And Aaron's like, yeah, okay, awesome. So how do we make money? Which is, goes to show.
Yeah.
It's definitely a critique of that mindset. But at the same time, it's also What exactly happens? I'm going to be. What happens when they try to be heroes? Like, do they succeed? Because he's talking in the recording like they're not succeeding, or like what they're doing is a failure. And there's leading up to it, there's all those moments where they think they predicted something, but it's not quite right.
Yeah.
You know, where the recording's different and all that stuff. In my mind, that's supposed to insinuate that those versions of those guys got shot.
I don't know what's going on with the recording at all. I have no idea. Let's first, in case the audience hasn't seen it, let's ground the logic of this time travel, because we've talked about this many times before on the podcast. There's different types of time travel movies, and I don't know the official name for them, but you have your Back to the Future causal loop, you have your predestination, where no matter what you go back and change in the past, the future will always happen as it is. Primer Josh has a very specific mechanic to the time travel. Can you, to the best of your ability, explain how it works?
Josh, explain Primer in 30 seconds.
No. Just how it works. How do they time travel?
Okay, so this is a lot of what I like about this movie, is that they're just trying to make some software like Steve Jobs in the garage, and they stumble upon these mechanisms, which the storytelling, even though it's maybe skipped over a lot in Wikipedia, the first 20 minutes, the mood it puts you in is you're following them and their portrayal of stumbling upon this magnificent technological discovery. Like, I feel like you're right there with them through that.
Yeah.
So they're doing it. It feels right. You're in good hands movie-wise, and it's just like a storage locker with like a bunch of hard drives hooked up to it, and it makes a whirring sound. That's very important, actually. The whirring sound, right, guys?
Yeah, they talk about that. It sings when you're on the inside.
Yes, the sound of the water hitting the shore at night or whatnot, whatever they say at that one point.
God, everything is so different in there. You can feel how cut off you are, you know? It's this entirely separate world, and you encompass most of it.
And the sound. Isn't the sound different on the inside? It's like it's singing. I guess you can't hear it on the outside.
I had this dream in there.
Because of About what?
I was on or near the ocean, and I just kept hearing the surf. It was so uneventful.
At night. And the tide kept coming in and out. Yeah.
Whenever this tries to be poetic, I'm a little put off by it, but that's just me.
I'm with you. Yeah.
But it does sound like how someone would describe being in like a float tank.
Yes.
I've never been in one, but they do mention like you feel unplugged for a little bit.
Have you ever gotten an MRI, like a really long one?
No.
Yeah, I for a long time I was very ill, and I got a lot of MRIs, and you do sort of it's this extreme beeping and knocking sound whenever they turn it on. You know, it sounds like a Nine Inch Nails album basically, and you do kind of enter this weird fugue where you kind of fall asleep, and it's just knocking and whirring and screaming at you, but it puts you to sleep in a strange way. I think that I don't know if that's an inspiration, but I think that might be something similar, where like the consistency of the machinery is what they're trying to say there. Josh, I got to say though, you are avoiding the question so hard. Pappy is trying desperately to ask you, how does the time travel work?
Well, I'll say,
what are the electromechanics?
I experience that same thing when I take off in a plane. Like, you're all uncomfortable, barely fit in the seat, and then it starts blasting up, and you're just kind of like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Do you use any kind of sleep noise, Josh? Do you have any kind of, like, soothing white noise you put on?
I like a good fan and the air from it.
A fan's great.
Let's go back to the time travel. Okay.
Oh, okay, sure.
I think they mentioned
if you want
that, like, they find some way to, like... get perpetual motion. Dude, what
there's like an anti-gravity. No, I'm talking about like the literal, they have to turn on the machine, right?
No, I'm
And
talking about
that's-
there's something that can cool crazily. It can like lessen temperature. It can grow fungus. It can like hop around.
So if somebody listening here has not heard, I'm going to try. I'll try.
Okay, yes.
If Josh
Please,
refuses to
Shad.
try, I
It's
will.
hard.
Okay, so based on what I've seen, it's like you get in the box, whatever's in the box moves back in time at the same speed you would be moving forward in time, right? And they kind of Benjamin Button their way through time in a little box. Then they leave the box, and at that point, there's two of them that exist. And they can, at this past time, now proceed to, work the stock market or et cetera. But some sources on the internet say that at this point, the original version of themselves has a termination of some sort. That their timeline is like doomed or something, or ceases to exist, and that the version that went back is the real version. That's where that's where it gets really unclear to me, because if they're really going back and creating separate copies every time, there should be 7 or 8 of them running around. Because the one that's always going back in time is always the one that's in a world where there's a double. And so if there's 2 of them and one of them goes in, there'll be 3 of them, and et cetera. I don't know. Am I off there?
There would be a double up into the point when the double gets in the box and goes back in time. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So I set the box at 9 a.m. I go to the hotel room.
This is what you wanted me to explain, apparently.
Quote, play Scrabble with my friend.
I thought you were talking about the science behind it, and that's really hard to suss out. So sorry.
I don't. No.
I think that's all just quantum stuff. It's like being able to predict quantum states, I think, is what they're trying to get at. But I don't know. I might be off there.
Point A to point B.
Yeah.
And quick side note, Quest. They don't hold anything back in terms of the language, right? Like Shane Carruth is an engineer, and I feel like I'm not trained as an engineer, so I can't pressure test like the logic of anything that he's saying, but it's not dumbing it down for the audience at any point, right? Which also kind of adds to the confusion of the story, I think, especially for a first-time watch. But to go back to my example, you set the machine up 9 a.m., you wait 6 hours in the hotel room. At whatever that is, 3 p.m., you go back to the box, you get in, and you wait for 6 hours, and you come back out at 9 a.m. the same day, right? And at that point, then there's 2 of you.
Yeah.
They go to the hotel room to prevent interacting or messing up the timeline. So Aaron and Abe 2 have free reign of the world, while the Aaron and Abe 1 who set up the time machine chill in the hotel room and do nothing. Does that?
And eventually those Aaron and Abes will get into the box,
Right.
perhaps the next day, and then they will cease to exist.
Mm-hmm. So they go away. And so, but it's also really tough to say, like, from whose perspective are we really watching this story? Is it the original Abe? Is it the original Aaron? Do we lose them at some point?
I feel like the original Aaron is getting a memo from his future self that's giving him the lowdown.
Yeah, I think that's... If you want to say, like, the Prime, I think Aaron Prime, the original Aaron, is the one who's being... There's another movie like this. I'm trying to remember where somebody's got the earpiece and it's like all pretty. Book of Henry. It's like the Book of Henry.
Yeah.
He's
That movie
getting
rules.
Book of Henry. That movie does rule. He's getting Book of Henry into how to properly, navigate these situations. Because if Abe is trying to go back and terminate the project, then the one who won has to be Aaron, because he's the one who makes it happen regardless because of the earpiece, I guess. Did you guys think it was weirdly convenient? I thought most of the story was believable and kind of tight. And there was that moment where he was like, and that's the reason why the box is modular. It's so that you could bring the box into a box. So you have infinite boxes. And so if there are infinite boxes, it just throws the whole thing into disarray.
I think the way I'm looking at that now that helps me simplify that is that Abe figured out, like, they were both figuring out different strides of that technology with each other, but the one that like clicked and made it time travel, that was Abe. And so that was like his one up. He figured it out first and made this failsafe thing. But then Aaron, in on it, found out about the failsafe, and his like advancement to the technology was realizing you could set it for just, I think like what you see when you watch the YouTube videos and stuff is he sets it to like 3 minutes or 3 hours previous to the other failsafe. So he has like just enough time.
Do that though, right? Like he would have had to have known when the original failsafe was turned on and turn his failsafe on.
Look, he knows what they're going to have for breakfast. He knows everything.
Yeah,
he says they're prescient, you know? It means they're omnipotent, basically.
Yeah, I guess. The whole failsafe concept, how many boxes are there? There's 3? There's 2? There's a main one and 2 failsafes?
I think there's the 2 main ones.
Yeah.
One failsafe, and then whatever copies Aaron made.
I think there's 2 like down on a lower level where they can both time travel together, which they do a few times. And then there's one upstairs that's Abe's failsafe. But then there's infinite Aaron box in boxes after that. So it's like 3 plus infinity, I think is how I look at that.
So the real wrench in the works here, and sorry if this is me stepping on your hosting responsibilities.
No,
I am very curious what you guys have to say about the Granger question, Thomas Granger, because the thing that, so there's a moment, I wrote it down somewhere where things like start to turn. Oh yeah, it's when they initially introduced the shotgun thing and they had that confrontation where they're looking for the fake cat or whatever, the definitely real
cat
in the fountains.
Yeah, just real quick. That happens at the 50-minute mark of the 70-minute movie, right? Like the main point of conflict is happening so late in the game.
Yes.
It's weird. It's weirdly paced. But sorry.
So they do that, and after that, the tone sort of shifts. But the thing that really starts making him go like, "Oh fuck, you know, things are falling apart," is when a back in time version of Thomas Granger, a character who has not had a single spoken line and does not for the rest of the film, and is only shot from a distance, right? And they have like the Jacob's Ladder ass cuts, you know, during the scene while they're driving. But he shows up somehow. His state of facial hair is different than when they saw him originally. Then he becomes comatose, which who knows what timeline had to deal with the comatose guy. Part of me wonders if they killed him. I don't know. And so like they never tell Mr. Granger once in the movie. They never do. Both of them promise they never will. The way the movie wraps up, it seems like nobody would ever have. He's been in there for multiple days, which means that he's in such a daze.
I love the way you're putting this.
Yeah, he's been in there for such a daze. He's been in there for so many days that he's in a daze. He's comatose. He's not even helpful. So if he had a goal to like go back and kill them or whatever, he couldn't. You know, he's a frail old man. So I realize the role it plays in the story, but what role does it play in the plot? I really can't wrap my mind around it.
I will say this movie doesn't actually have a ton of conflict, you know? And in many ways, it's almost a movie more about like business partnerships than it is even time travel. Like that's almost like the real heart of the movie. Conflict.
100%. And the movie ends with that, where they split off, and one's like, "I'm here to do it for the right reasons." The other guy's like, "I'm here to do it for the money." I mean, it's pretty patent.
The way
because that's the whole thing with Platt, and that's the whole thing with the 2 guys at the beginning. It's like, why waste 20 minutes of the 70-minute movie cutting out George and Ringo if not that's actually what this movie's about? You know?
Yeah,
I think Granger, like on the surface, he is like someone that they could potentially sell the other one out to for money, you know, like, but I think for the plot, what they're trying to say is like, with an infinite possibilities of how this could be primed, there is a solution where he ends up in the mix, right? And it's like the Groundhog's Day thing. This has lived so many times, possibly, that we're just in one of the realities where he got in a box. I like the way I kind of think of it is that he got kind of like pissed and was like, why aren't they showing up to anything, calling off duty? And he goes and investigates on his own. Somehow, bada boom, bada bing, gets himself into a box.
Yeah, he trips on a pile of, I don't know, leftover stock sheets or something on the ground.
Goes straight into a
Somehow
box.
slips a mask over his face so he doesn't overdose on argon gas. I don't know.
They wrote "Do not enter" on the storage unit, but no one can read their handwriting. So he's like, "What does this say?"
There you go.
Next thing you know, he's
There
just
you go.
balls deep in time, just back and forth.
Well, it's that. I mean, like, I don't know. Again, in terms of critical commentary, I think that moment works because it's dark and creepy, and it's like, what? Yeah, like what? Who is this guy? Like, what's going to happen? I don't think anything's ever necessarily paid off from it. And that's also kind of how I feel about the party scene. Because it's like this movie's now like introducing a gun, right? Like there's a shotgun happening at this party. But like, I can't even really tell you like to what conclusion that comes to. Like Abe takes the bullets out of the gun. Yeah. And that's the final run through.
Well, but then there's a whole monologue that's going over it about, man, no matter how much you predict, we're under the impression that we can be gods, but maybe we can't be gods. At least that's what I'm sort of hearing from it. And yet they sort of, I don't know if they succeed. I'm looking at a summary right now and it's saying that the two men briefly, tentatively reconcile in order to do this. And so they're both like, time gods. They're both, doing fates within fates, Dune style on each other. They're like, no, what's important is that we go and we make Aaron look like a hero because Rachel doesn't even get shot.
Yeah.
And
in none of the timelines she gets shot.
What? So Aaron can look like a badass?
And, and they kind of want to take this guy out as hard as possible too.
Yeah. Which also, projection, much? An abusive ex-boyfriend?
Interesting.
Ooh,
Interesting.
I don't know, something to think about.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Good call. Allegedly. The guy with the shotgun allegedly showed up with a shotgun.
Yeah. Our attorney spoiler man will know, allegedly.
Josh, I didn't say a specific name on who's projected. That's all I'm going to say.
All I said was the word allegedly. Just sprung it right in there.
They're the ones causing this event to even happen, right? So I guess it's like, I don't know. That is a frustrating thing sometimes where it's like, these characters are ethically bankrupt. Dude, there's a lot of messages in this movie. Like to then interpret that these are also not so great guys and they're causing it. They're not actually trying to fix it. I don't know. Like it's just, it almost doesn't land that well for me because it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be feeling during this party other than I don't know what's going to happen because I don't understand what's happening.
You see a disheveled pair.
Yeah.
One, a budget Alan Tudyk. The other, a budget David Duchovny. Both earpieces. Both wearing ties and untucked shirts. I mean, it's hard to imagine them as heroes in that situation.
Mind you, this is 2002, and they're wearing these like headphones to this party. Everyone's gonna be like, "What are you doing?"
Exactly.
Just listening to myself from the future.
No big deal.
That's sort of like the people who smoke cigarettes but don't light them. Have you ever met somebody like that at a party where it's like, no, I don't light them, for aesthetic reasons? It's like,
I just keep it behind my ear.
Yeah.
Josh, how are you feeling towards the end of this movie? One of the notes that I wrote down was the last 15 minutes are just batshit crazy. There's just so much happening in the last 15 minutes, and it's kind of hard to follow. Like you have Abe passing out, you have maybe them killing themselves or knocking themselves out.
This is where a podcast will always kind of fail in describing this movie. It's just kind of a ride. Mm-hmm. And I do, even in hindsight, feel like you're in good hands through this ride. And so like the first 2/3 of the movie are like a pretty good movie that keeps you entertained. It's captivating. The payoff, it feels like it's a real payoff because if nothing else, shit is going down. You're finally seeing they've been living lives upon lives, backstabbing each other, backstabbing their previous selves, and to varying success and all of those. There's no action scenes, but there are a couple scenes like with death or killings. I think my most visceral one that I'll always remember is where I think Abe is killing his own past Abe self, and he's using some sort of nitrous
Is
gas.
he killing him? Are we sure that he's killing him?
I think he's just knocking him out because I think at the end when they both break out of their different locations, Aaron from the attic and Abe from the closet, that's supposed to be that Abe I meant. I thought.
Well, and Abe mentions so the movie ends with they're not going to go back anymore. So at the final timeline, there are now at least 2 Aarons and 2 Abes, right? Like living in this
Aarons,
timeline.
2 Abes.
That sounds more right. Yeah. 1 Aaron is in the closet, which apparently sounded like rats. And they tease that at the beginning of the movie.
No, it's the attic, yeah.
Oh, sorry, attic, yeah. Abe is in the closet, I believe. Yeah.
Which maybe is a part of the prevailing gay subtext of this film, which they try to lampshade at one point.
Interesting.
They try to lampshade.
Yeah, they're like, whoa, isn't it wild that we spend 6 hours a day in a hotel room? The receptionist might think we're gay. You know what I mean? I don't know.
But at the core of it, they're actually, the whole goal of traveling back in time is to spend 6 hours in a hotel with your bro playing Scrabble, or like, you know, what could be better than playing a little Risk,
watching the dishes. And just imagine this guy he spends 6 hours a day in a hotel room with his bro, comes home, and then his wife is like, I think the cat's lost. He's like, me and my bro will go look for the cat. I don't know.
Then we will wash the dishes.
Yeah. It's I don't think I spend that much time with my wife. You know what I mean? It's wild how much time these guys spend together.
At one point, Aaron's super bummed because he has to give his daughter a bath rather than hang out with his bro. He's like, damn it, to be a dad.
That was a very real line read, by the way.
I just don't know. Like, I am torn. Like, there is a subtext there that you were talking about, but also it could be a criticism of just like that entrepreneurial early 2000s lifestyle where it's like, yeah, when shit is hitting hot, your whole family and any of your personal shit doesn't really matter. All that really matters is this thing in front of you, this carrot.
Yeah.
What's so weird too is like, this is 2002, right? This is like literally post the .com bubble blowing up, before like all of the tech bros now that I associate with like that whole scene out there. So if this came out in like 2019, I'd be like, oh, this is a commentary on like Jack from Twitter, you know, and like all those people. But I don't know, it's almost like way ahead of its time, and it's ahead of its time in terms of like the multiverses. Yeah.
Are you saying that he had precognition?
Is this a primer for what was to come in the future?
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like this vague conversation about the potential gay subtext of this film would be remiss without mentioning the weird stray that occurs.
It is
drops the F slur, which I mean, it makes sense for 2004, but it's just it feels so out of place.
So to spell it out, he says the gay slur F word to his, like, this is the main character, mind you, Shane Carruth,
Aaron,
to his wife,
just describing his colleagues.
Which, you know, in my mind, again, that sounds like he's trying to overcompensate for something. He's like, no, honey, I promise, I hate the gays. You know what I mean? That's the impression I got.
It's weird. It's a weird little one-off in this. I did not like it.
I don't know. What do you mean?
It's just a little embarrassing. The storage room guy sees us come in together, but he never sees us leave.
Yeah, but what do you think the receptionist thinks about 2 guys that come and get a room for 6 hours every day?
Did you unplug this? You brought your cell phone?
Can I check the caller ID? Yeah, we're not back.
Yeah, but you can't take it back with you, okay?
This is Aaron. Hey, babe. Yeah, I'm not there. I had to come downtown and hold some of these guys' hands. Tell me. Oh, that sounds good. Now I gotta eat with these offside bags. Save mine, though. I'll have it later. Okay. Yeah. 6.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see it both ways. Like it's either like I don't think we're supposed to like these guys necessarily, right? So maybe it is some commentary on like the grind set bro, tech bro culture, or it's just 2004. That's the way that he talks.
Yeah. I went to school in 2004. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine that there's much more to it than he's a bro.
Hey, listen, also we're spreading, it's not the grind set anymore, it's the crying set now.
The what?
Like, it just makes you cry a lot. Crying set.
Oh.
Instead of the grind set.
I didn't know that. Yeah, well.
That's just something that me and our mutual friend Jane Shad kind of have come up with. Crying set.
Okay. Yeah, that sort of makes sense, I think, right now. The world's kind of going crazy. I feel like Aaron and Abe could have learned a little from the cry set, a little bit. They are, for all of the insanity that's going on around them. First off, they take it all so well. Abe is like, "Don't freak out, bro. I invented time travel," and Aaron is like, "Oh, damn, does it hurt?"
I love
that's
the
as
line.
much as he can kind of muster. Go ahead.
I love the line where he's like, they go in, he's like, I can imagine in no way this thing could be considered remotely safe at all.
Yeah.
Like,
I like that part where it hurts physically too. That kind of like drives it home a little bit.
It's odd to me that none of them die or get turbo cancer. You know what I mean? Like they're in it so long and so often, and they starts bleeding out of his ears, which honestly can't be good. They're up for 36 hours a day. I'm imagining that the second they build the big one in France or whatever, he just drops dead from whatever's going on,
or just gets covered in fungus. Like that plot's kind of dropped.
They're trying to drop hints. I think that like the more clones there are of you, the less personality or like soul you retain. It's kind of what I'm getting at it. So that's like why your handwriting starts dropping. Maybe your creativity starts leaving. Your empathy.
Whoa.
Oh, what's that?
The handwriting thing. You remember when he says, "Write with your left hand"?
Yeah.
It's more like that. Part of me wonders if it's supposed to be like a joke or something related to them traveling back in time and reversing themselves.
Like a left brain, right brain reverse, or
yeah, like they're turning right, like turning left-handed. I don't know. That's what, because I don't know. When he does, probably the funniest line read of the movie is, "Why can't we write like normal people?"
Yeah, I wrote that one down.
And when he's asked that, Aaron's like, "Just write with your left hand," and part of me thinks that's, I don't know.
We definitely can. I mean, he leaves it in the truck before he goes in. I mean, we don't even need to, but if it makes you feel better.
What's wrong with our hands?
What do you mean?
Why can't we write like normal people?
I don't know. I can see the letters. I know what they should look like. I just can't get my hand to make them easily. Try comparing it to your left hand. Mine looks the same.
I was just going to ask you guys, what other, if you were to add like a few things, because like the ear bleeding thing, like if you time travel too much or you're too many clones of yourself, your ear starts bleeding. That's another hint. I feel like you could lose the magic of music maybe after too many clones in. I don't know. Are there any other things you guys feel like you would start to get shallow with?
Is that why Aaron misses the shot? Like, is he a better basketball player until he
See,
starts
that's a
back?
huge scene, and this is actually a spoilers basketball thread. If you're keeping track.
add it to the RSS feed, spoilers basketball episodes.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. That makes sense because there's a version of that recorded conversation where he makes the shot, which is sort of, I don't know. It's very funny to me how nonchalant they get about the paradox thing the second they realize it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where he's like, "What? You brought your cell phone in here?" And he answers the phone. He's like, "Yeah, I'll pick her up." Puts it down. And they're like, "I'm hungry. Let's go get sandwiches." It's like, I thought the whole point is you sit in the damn room the whole time.
I didn't gray out like Back to the Future. I guess we're good.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like jumping into like time travel head on. They're like, okay, it's Thursday. Let's time travel for the next 7 days. Like, why not take a break? Like why not do it once a week? Like, you know.
Yeah, go to your doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
To that end, it is a good metaphor for someone that is like a Zuckerberg who lands on this technology that fits with another technology that impacts everyone's life on the globe. And his like formation of ethics and theology in his brain is like an egg. He's got like nothing. So it's just like flailing around. I like that view of the movie. That actually does make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need to see with them like windsurfing with like SPF 1000 on their face, the Zuckerberg style.
With they got a shelf full of trophies in the background, but there's also one bottle of barbecue sauce amongst it. Just
Sweet Baby Ray's.
So you seem like a real dude.
You guys are ducking on Zuckerberg. He's hot now, apparently. That's the new technology, is that he's hot because he has a beard.
Like in the metaverse? Or like
no,
in
like
real
in
life?
real life. He grew a beard and everybody's like, Zuckerberg's hot now. So maybe that's all Aaron needs, I guess, to straighten himself out. Who knows? I don't know. As a bearded man myself, I think that's probably true, but that's just my opinion on the issue.
I just shaved mine to a mustache to avoid looking like Zuck, so you might want to follow.
If there's one way to prove that you're not a time traveling murderer, it's to put a barbecue bottle on your shelf in the background of your Skype calls. Like, it's just obvious.
He does barbecue at one point. Aaron does barbecue. That does happen.
Makes him so relatable when he does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's totally human. He barbecues. Look at this guy.
I did think of you, Josh, like the basketball. Like, it goes out of its way to mention like March Madness.
Yeah.
They're watching basketball later. I'm like, oh, I bet Josh appreciates
I think it's
this.
a key scene too, because I think if you're like really digging deep in the movie, Abe is seeing that things from the future and past or whatever can like change. He makes the shot in the recording, but in like the live thing he's watching, he misses. The conversation stays pretty much the same, but he's getting this idea that like maybe I don't have as much control over this as I think. and maybe that just plays into like what I think is one of the strengths of this movie, just the sinking feeling. And you're slowly going around the drain in those last like 15 minutes. Like the drain is just whipping up speed. You're in a tornado. It's bad.
Yeah.
On that same note, too, like one of the lines that makes me laugh too is like, because I just know people like this. Abe is like, "How do cell phones work? Like, is it a network? Like, do they call?" And Aaron's like, "No, that's not how cell phones work." And then Abe's like, "Are you sure?" And then Aaron's like, "No, I actually don't know." He's just bullshit. He has no idea how cell phones actually work. He's just lying. I don't know. Any other final thoughts? Like, this is, again, one of the most unspoilable, complicated movies that we've done in the history of spoilers. Anything we missed? Anything else you guys want to talk about?
I will say one thing. First off, thank you so much for including me on a show that was unspoilable. But the airport, do they not know how airports work? I don't know. It's wild to me that they're sitting at the airport in a terminal, in an actual terminal. This is after 2001. Security's up.
Yeah.
Right. And they're like, "Man, we need to steal our passports back." And he's like, "Nah, I'm going to a foreign country." He's like, "Oh, you guys got to go back through security and get your passport figured out." I don't know. It was very silly to me that they were doing that. I know it's a weird errata to the whole conversation, but I was thinking that was a final thought. That was one thing that we didn't get to, and it was important to me. So there we go.
They just traverse themselves into reality where 9/11 had never happened. Bada boom, bada bing.
Oh, see,
got that.
Mark Wahlberg style. They just
Oh, dude.
They were on Flight 93. 9/11 happened, but they never crashed into that field in Pennsylvania.
The
so
date
it's all
did
good.
occur, but that was all. All it was, a normal date.
on the ending, I will say one, super abrupt. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I love it. Like, yeah, of course he's building a bigger one, and of course it's like, whoa, what's gonna happen? I guess, but like, it just hits that like little primer logo thing so quick at the end, and I don't know. Can we just like talk through the conversation around Aaron kind of shitting on Abe being jealous of his family? Like, that's where it's landing, right? And like, Abe is going to watch Aaron's family and the double of himself to ensure no one creates the time travel technology, including the second or third Aaron, right? Like, that's the conclusion.
Yeah, I guess he sort of turns into a vigilante superhero of some sort. He's even got like the undercover fit, you know. He's wearing the ball cap and the sweater. Yeah. He looks like he's ready to be he's going to prevent time travel. Yeah, I think that sort of loops back to what we've been saying, which is this is really just a movie about startup culture and how businesses can kind of tear people apart. Aaron's like, oh, what are you going to do then? You know, you're going to make sure that every Aaron has a family and that you have a family and that everybody's hunky-dory. Where Aaron, I think, is just thinking bigger, or he's under the impression he is, that what matters is that he's able to make world-changing discoveries. And Abe, for him, it's more about making sure that the people he cares about are happy and safe.
Which happens to be Aaron's wife.
Yes. Which is sort of strange. Aaron's wife is a weird character in this movie. She is one of the most supportive people humanly imaginable.
She loves ice from the fridge.
Even if it's got bacteria in it.
He won't even let her have that.
She's like, I don't know, she's slaving over all of this stuff, and then the second she asks for help, Aaron kind of like is pissy about it. I don't know. It's again, I think it's mostly just about how business can kind of tear familial relationships apart. It's sort of like Blade Runner 2049 in that way, where at the end the hero, I guess Abe is supposed to be the hero in some way, chooses just basic familial relationships rather than the greater good, I guess. I don't know.
And there is something to be said too, like Aaron is like going corporate with it, right? Like, he's taking it from this garage set to some big company in France is financing this ginormous time machine, which will fuck things up way worse than they were able to do at their scale. So yeah, there's something there. Yeah.
And if you had to guess, what are they putting in there?
More boxes. Obviously.
A box in every home.
Yeah.
I guess, like, what sort of books should they have been reading? What theology should they have been aware of where, like, it could have prepared them to, like, share this kind of power in any sort of meaningful way? Like, got any hints for past Aaron and past Abe, you two?
Could have watched Predestination. Could have watched Primer. Just want to go back in time and watch Primer.
Seen this movie.
Yeah. They could have watched Time Bandits, which is
Time
a movie about
Bandits. Yeah.
killing your parents. They would have just ended up killing their parents instead. But I think I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think any philosophical structure other than like pure nihilism would caution Aaron against this kind of action. You know what I mean?
Which action?
I don't know. Just going corporate and then creating a situation. Like, if you make it that big, the only thing that you're moving is either thousands of people or I guess like 6 elephants. I don't know. Like planes. You know, if there is some sort of causal damage that they're causing, that was a very dumb sentence.
No, I love the scale of 1,000 people or 6 elephants.
That makes sense, though. That actually worked for me.
Yeah. So, but like, what are those 6 elephants supposed to do? I mean, I imagine Aaron can make his money off those 6 elephants, but anytime that they go back in time, this is something to think about. Anytime they go back in time, for any sort of monetary gain, they also have to go back in time. So that version of Aaron is forever doomed kind of to be bouncing around. At what point does he have time to go to the Poconos and enjoy himself? You know what I mean? Like it's just this pursuit of blind power, I guess. I don't know.
Could you do something like aging whiskey or aging wine, like using this technology? Like at the end of the day, you always put it in, and so you wake up and it's going to be one day older. You know what I mean? Like, could that be an application for this?
What about growing crops?
That's an option. Yeah, more corn.
Yeah.
I can maybe like high skill labor is also an option because even though people might be in pain, they could have the they could have the not the CO2, they could have the oxygen, and they could be like making lace or carving wood. I don't know. That's a possibility. Stuff that takes a long time.
That's true. If they had the real grind set, they wouldn't be sleeping in the box. They'd be like coding or working on their skills.
That's why it's called the crying set.
Yeah. Here's actually this is what he should have done. He should have got really good at card tricks and been that guy at the party who ruined the party by doing card tricks at the party, stopped the party so that the guy never showed up with the shotgun in the first place.
That's true.
Like this party is canceled at like 6:15. Like he's 3 card tricks in. Okay, this just dog ain't gonna hunt.
Yeah, he starts playing Wonderwall. Everybody's like, okay, I get it. I'm going out.
Again, I know not a big fan of the way Shane Carruth turned out, but this is very pure. And you mentioned this a little bit, Chad, but in the credits, all food provided by Chip and Kathy Carruth. Like, that's just adorable. Like, they're making sandwiches for the boys, making their little time travel movie. Like, I don't know. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other final thoughts? Anything we missed?
Box inside of a box.
Box in a box.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do yes or no. I'll go first. I'm going to go pretty hard yes. And I think the perfect time to see this movie is like when you're 14, 15, 16, 17. Like that is like prime, and I'm so primer. And I'm so glad I saw it at that point. And there's something like very cool too about how low budget it is. And whether or not I should be taking into account those like external factors around making a film. I think it works. I think this worked if it was like $1 million budget or a $7,000 budget. The fact that it's a $7,000 budget makes it all the more impressive. I think even like this conversation kind of unlocking the elements of like tech bro culture, which are more relevant today, makes it even more interesting. And I don't know. I do take issue when people say it's the most accurate time travel movie of all time, because it's like, you don't fucking know. Like no one knows like what's an accurate time travel movie. Like who knows what that looks like? For all I know, Back to the Future is the most accurate time travel movie of all time. But I will say it's 70 minutes. It's incredible that this movie was made for $7,000. It moves fast enough where you're not really asking like, questions on the logic of the movie other than I'm trying to understand it. I'm trying to take it in, and it makes you really want to rewatch it almost more than like any other movie that I can think of. Like, I need to watch this again to understand it. So for all those reasons, I'll give it a hard yes. Josh, glad you made us do this. Go ahead and go next for Primer.
Yeah, this is just a primer for This is Shane Carruth's primer. I feel like he's comparing himself to like Aesop and his fables. Just a lot. I think if this movie happened in modern times, like you might get the idea, maybe I could go back in time and change Twitter to X, and that's a good idea. That's how I see that working out. If you are rich enough, This movie's a huge yes. time travel is a thing you can pick apart to the nth degree, but the way you have to judge this, I feel like, is how this movie makes you feel for 77 minutes. And it's like you feel like you're kind of on the inside with some tech bros. You're inside with the two more inside guys as they break off from the others. And then you feel for them as they go through this really confusing time where they control space and time. And it's done for $7,000. That's insane. That's like $70 a minute for this movie or something. I don't know. It's insane.
Jeez. Yeah.
I love this movie. I loved it from the first time I saw it, but granted, that was when I was like probably 17 or 18, Pap. It's a good prime age for it, I'd say. Big yes. It pretty much stood the test of time. Yeah, thanks. What do you think, Shad?
This is Shad from Hillsdale. I'm going to say that I'm going to give it a soft yes. And the reason is because I did not watch this when I was 17. I know from watching this now, if I had sat through all of this movie, I would have made multiple girlfriends sit all the way through this movie. I mean, like, no, you don't understand. This movie's great. Instead, they watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is a hard yes from me. But I think that I thought this movie was going to be harder to understand, and I would be bored. I was never bored. You know what I mean? And part of that, I think, might be the runtime. But for a movie of guys just talking in rooms and being sweaty, it's just, it really moves along. The dialogue is natural. It's fun. It's quick. There's a couple of jokes, couple of yucks in there as well. Not amazing, but there are a couple of yucks. And so I really felt it. And the story is, the time travel stuff is just complicated enough to where it's incomprehensible. Like, you can never really get true answers from it, which I'm sure is why the cult following is as strong as it is. But it's not too complicated to where you can't see the drama in it and you can't see their lives sort of slowly falling apart. And you can grasp enough of it to know that these guys are way in over their head. So yeah, no, I definitely recommend Primer. Especially, I always heard this movie pitched as, this is the real proof that anybody could make a movie. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, $7,000. I mean, I imagine the man hours that he put into this would definitely exceed that as far as if you were to convert that into money. But I mean, it's inspiring. It really is. I want to conclude by reading the opening sentence to the highlighted IMDb user review of this movie. You remember the first time you saw The Matrix and you could barely keep up with what was going on? And I do not remember that. But I definitely do remember that about Primer. Definitely a lot harder to understand than The Matrix.
And I will say, too, the fact that it has a semi-active subreddit 20 years after the movie came out is pretty... Yeah. And a disgraced director, by the way. So it's like the coolest thing to like.
I love the word Shad said there, inspiring. That's something when I was just on my ride home from like work today thinking about the movie. It's like, it is inspiring. If you're any sort of artist or young filmmaker or et cetera, like, if the idea is there, that's all this movie really is, right? It's like visuals and an idea that sustains you for just the right amount of time.
Mm-hmm. And that, I don't know. That's why, Josh, I always want to do those indie movies when people reach out to us. Because, it's probably going to be an Alexander Cooper movie, but it might not be. It might be actually good and not crazy. Before we do trivia, Shad, I just want to make sure you can shout out your podcast one more time. Monomaniacs?
Yeah, check out Monomaniacs Pod. We're on YouTube, Spotify. We also have a Patreon at Monomaniacs Pod on Patreon. It's a show where we sit down with people, and we're kind of obsessed with the idea that every week nowadays people seem to have new things that they focus on. They become ultra obsessed with stuff very quickly, and they learn all about it on Wikipedia or et cetera, and then they just move on. And so the whole point of the show is we interview people about whatever it is that they're currently into and try and get them before the Dunning-Kruger effect kicks in and they realize that they don't know what they're talking about.
Hey, just really quick, this is Josh from the future. I just wanted to say that I was actually on the Monomaniacs pod. Shad had me on. That was really nice of him and his brother Dylan. I tried to talk about berries and gardening. I think I already knew that I didn't know what I was talking about, but you should check out that episode and their podcast anyway.
So it's mostly just sort of an opportunity for us to sit down, chat with interesting people, have a good time. Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. We're about to hit episode 100.
Let's go.
A couple of weeks. So we're about to
had Aaron and Abe on from this movie. They could have talked about how they're obsessed with time travel and ethics all of a sudden.
Yes. We're obsessed with the will to power over our past selves, I guess. I don't know.
It's a recent obsession.
Super into mid-cap stocks. We're all about.
Yeah. Mostly it's stuff like Pringles and crime novels, but it's a good time. It's mostly just a conversation, and we have a really good time with it. So yeah, check it out.
Yes, please do. If you're listening to spoilers, make sure you're subscribed to Monomaniacs on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. But because this is spoilers, we have a little bit of trivia.
Oh boy.
And this one's going to involve some math, lads. So it's going to be a simple, closest to. No, there's nothing super high stakes other than a hot take and the chance to say, take it away, Spoilerman, at the end of the episode. So arguably the highest of stakes one could possibly have. I used Wikipedia for this. And there's a Wikipedia entry called Films About Time Travel. And there's a Wikipedia entry called Films Based on A Christmas Carol. And wouldn't you know it, there's also a separate Wikipedia entry called Films Based on A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. You know, all of these are time travel stories. The Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court is like a kid in King Arthur's Court. Great 90s movie. So, for this trivia question, I want you to take the number of entries on films about time travel minus the number of entries on a films based on A Christmas Carol plus the number of entries on a films based on a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. So say that again. We have a total number of movies about time travel minus the movies based on A Christmas Carol plus the number of films based on the Mark Twain story, A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. Josh, we'll let Shad have the advantage. So why don't you...
So to make this clear, though, we don't know what these integers are, period. It's just literally what we think it is, minus one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and please do show your math, because I think that's interesting for the listener. So you're kind of giving three separate guesses. And this, of course, this is Wikipedia. May not be all-encompassing, but according to Wikipedia.
Movies about time travel. I'm just getting a number like maybe 100 and some in my mind, like maybe 130. Okay, I'll go with that. Let's just say 120. Christmas Carol movies.
It'd be minus, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking like a dozen max. 10. So 110. Go to 110 plus King Arthur's Court, Mark Twain plus 5. So 115. Is that where I'm at then, Pap? Lock it in.
115. I should guess. Writing that out. Shad?
Okay, so the only thing about this that complicates things is redundancy. So how much redundancy is there on this list? Are all the movies on the other two lists in the about time travel section? I don't know. So my gut is I think Josh basically had it right, but I think it's less. I think that the end number is less. So I think time travel movies is probably roughly 100. I'm going to say Christmas Carol movies are like 10. Not going to go to a dozen. Yankee, the Connecticut Yankee movies, I think 3. I'm going a hard guess at 3.
Mm-hmm.
Is that 93?
Yeah, roughly.
So Josh,
roughly.
I'm just gonna lock in at 95 total. That's what I'm gonna lock in at. 95.
Okay, so Josh guessed 115. Shad guessed 95. There were, and lads, I'm not making this up, but you have no idea how much massaging I had to do to find these right numbers. There were 447
damn.
movies about time travel.
Okay, sorry.
There were 37 movies based on A Christmas Carol.
Dang.
Gosh.
And there were 10 films based on a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court.
Yeah.
Leading us to a fairly dank number of 420 movies.
It was literally 4 times everything we said.
You can't make that up, folks.
Okay, Pap, I'm imagining what you did was you came up with 420 and you were like, look, what do I have to minus and plus to make this work?
How do I primer myself backwards? Trivia.
Truth be told, I counted the number in time travel. Then I counted A Christmas Carol. I was like, 447, 37. Okay, give me a list with 10 movies. That's all I need. But Josh, you win. Please toss us out to Spoilerman and give us a hot take while you're at it.
Shad, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Patreons, thank you for Patreoning. And my hot take is like, IU basketball seems like they're just in the recruiting, signing NIL phase, getting transfers, but it seems like 2024 season is going to be pretty amazing. Looking forward to it for the IU Hoosiers. I'm calling it now. A rare sports moment for Josh on the pod.
It sounds like somebody was in the box for a while.
He knows.
I think I primered myself back in time and I saw the sports futures. But anyway, I got that little book from Back to the Future because that's what you would do if you had time travel, all omniscient things. You would steal a sports betting book, right, guys?
Yeah.
It'd be good for laundering, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right. At least Spoiler Man agrees with me. Right, Spoiler Man?
Spoiler Man here. Got home very late, to put it mildly. So let's get right into it. Special thank you to our patrons, Matt Troll.
I know, Abe. That's the question.
Brother Brian.
I know, so what's the answer?
Nephew Quinn.
You've got the $400 billion. You've gone the charity route.
Nick.
You have this perfect 100-room mansion with matching his and her yachts and helicopter pads.
The Meg.
I mean, basically, you have absolute impunity to do whatever you want. Nobody can touch you.
Nurse Stacy.
You're fresh back from this 2-year world galloping vacation. How do you feel your day? What do you do?
The Wolf.
I would ram my fist through the flat of his nose.
Gale.
Because I just want to know what it feels like. That's all, really.
PK.
Finally, my husband, the hero.
Spencer.
Did you call pest control?
Barky 420.
She thinks there are rats in the attic.
Swole.
And with no need for it, no possible real-world application.
She's zombie.
No advantage at all to be gained from it. The idea stayed.
Sebastian.
I'm not going to pretend like I know anything, okay, about paradoxes, or what follows them.
Dr. Lars.
You don't have to look at me,
okay? Stone Cold Austin.
Oh, maybe things aren't right, Like,
maybe your life is in disarray or just not what you would like, and you start to wonder, what caused this?
Best friend Drew.
How did things get like this?
Druid King.
See, man, I'm not like that. I'm not into the whole destiny, there's only one right way. Abe, I'm not either, okay? But what's worse? Thinking you're being paranoid or knowing you should be?
If you'd like to request an episode, hear your name read by Spoilerman, or even just help us make podcasts, please check us out on patreon.com/spoilerspodcast.
The wolf. Brother Brian. The Meg. Is that wrong? Is that wrong? Yeah, that was right. Okay, yeah.
That was Spoilers.